Thank you.
We can't hear you, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker, we are not audible enough. Change the position.
In the House and may be ruled.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. We cannot hear a thing, Chair. Not one word.
Deputy Speaker, can I take over? Then you'll come back after we have sorted out your line. Thank you. Honorable members, thank you very much. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary platform is deemed to be in the presence of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes. In addition to the rules of the visual sitting, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in the sitting of the National Assembly. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up any noise which might disturb the attention of other honorable members. When recognized honorable member to speak, please unmute your mic and connect your video. Members may use of the icons on the bar of the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the visual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Lastly, honorable members, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decision will be taken in full plenary session of the Assembly. Thank you, members. Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker. Okay.
Yes, now, honorable member, am I audible? Can I proceed?
Yes, honorable.
Can you hear me? Is that okay? All right, all right. Thank you very much for that intervention. Technology is crazy at the worst of times. We would like to, are you able to hear me now? The first item on the order paper is a motion in the name of Honorable Ernest Matias. Honorable Matias.
Honorable Chair, thank you so much for this opportunity. Honorable Chair, we come here once again to give voice to the voiceless, to speak up on behalf of the marginalized, the dejected, the wretched of this earth, people to whom freedom remains a distant dream. These people, men, women, and children, who wake up in the wee hours of the morning to toil the soil, to produce the food we eat, but who often go to bed hungry every day. We are here to speak of these men, these women, who have a strong bond to the land because more often than not, they grew up in the land. Their parents and grandparents are buried in the land, but they live in constant fear of evictions from the very land because the land belongs to someone else. We want this house to note and recognize the pain that farm workers and farm dwellers have to go through every day. It is our constitutional responsibility to do so. Farm workers and farm dwellers are among the most vulnerable groups of people in this country. Honorable Chair, this is a historical problem. You and I can bear testimony to. Because of our history, the relationship between farm owners and farm workers has always been mediated by violence. From the violence of forceful dispossession of land to the slave-like work conditions on farms, from the complete disregard of the human rights of the young and the old, to the forceful and illegal evictions of people who have stayed on these farms for generations. This House must acknowledge that despite being directly involved in the production of food, farm workers are prone to going for days without food, particularly those employed seasonally. It is also common practice among farmers to pay workers with wine instead of money, therefore creating alcohol dependence that is destroying any prospects of a better future for farm workers and their families. Honorable Chair, we want to put it here to this House to further acknowledge that this problem has to come to an end. This House must acknowledge that despite being directly involved in the production of food, these families went for days without food. We want this House to further acknowledge the farm workers who for long hours and hardly get remunerated for overtime, that the majority of them do not have access to paid annual leave, and an even lesser number has access to paid sick leave. Less than 10% are entitled to maternity leave, and just more than 20% have pension of retirement fund. It must recognize that reality of land dispossession, the maliciousness of the racist system that has characterized South Africa's agriculture, the lack of adequate law enforcement on farms have created undesirable forms of relationship on farms. The relationship which make farm workers slaves in the country of their own birth and farm owners slave owners. Further, the House must recognize that if the living and the working conditions of farm workers are left as they are, then
friends for the catering and for all those things. That's why.
South African population with devastating impacts for peace and civil relations on farms. Therefore, Parliament must play a leading role towards the protection of the constitutional rights of all, particularly of the vulnerable groups in society, farm workers included. We therefore ask that this House establishes an ad hoc committee in terms of Rule 253 of the Rules of the National Assembly to conduct a comprehensive review of the living and working conditions of farm workers in South Africa. This must take into account the living conditions on farms, working conditions, including remuneration of farm workers. This must also take into account the eviction of farm workers from farms, make an assessment of legislation affecting farm workers and farm dwellers in this country, and make recommendations for legislative amendments to provide for more comprehensive protection of farm workers and farm dwellers. conduct public hearings with all interested and affected parties, including farm workers themselves, unions organizing on farms, and civil society organizations. This ad hoc committee should consist of 11 members as follows: 1, ANC 6 members, 2, DA 2 members, 3, EFF 3, and 4, any other party represented by at least 2. Exercise those powers in Rule 167 that may assist in it carrying out its task, and report back to the National Assembly by no later than the 30th March 2021. We want to present this as a compelling case for people have been looking for far too long for an intervention to be relieved from the slave-like condition that they've been subjected to for centuries, Honorable Chair. We're appealing to your conscience. If your conscience cannot guide you this time around, at least you're appealing to your consciousness. Let's intervene decisively and bring to an end to this injustice to our people. You and I can bear testimony to. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let's invite Honorable ZMD Mandela.
Chair.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kat.
Honorable Chair, Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Ngwezi.
I'm sorry, my hand was up before the Honorable Matias finished. I want to appeal, Honorable Deputy Speaker, to really, request on our behalf, members joining. They normally not mute their mics, and the chair that side had warned members.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You are right, Honorable Ngwezi. I think members, please just check your microphone so that it's off. You'll speak only when we let you speak. Thank you very much. Thanks, Honorable Ngwezi. Honorable Mandela.
Thank you, Deputy.
You may open your mic. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, honorable members of the House, respected members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. As the ANC, we share the concerns and feel the pain of harsh realities faced by our farm workers all over the country, especially here in the Western Cape Province, the cradle of a colonial project, and where the ravages of this horrid legacy still remains evident despite a number of progressive legislative reforms that we have enacted. 4 main policy goals of the ANC as outlined in the 1992 Ready to Govern document are to ensure a right to vote for government of your choice in a united South Africa, overcoming the problems of inequality and injustice caused by apartheid and colonialism, developing an economy that grows steadily and makes the lives of all South Africans better, to encourage loyalty and pride for our country shared by all its people, wherein all feel free and safe. In confronting these challenges faced by our farm workers and their families, our actions must therefore be guided by the wisdom and maturity without compromising the imperative of seeking land justice, security of tenure, stopping farm evictions, addressing the appalling living conditions of farm workers, and the inhumane and ill treatment of farm workers. We must eschew the appetite of playing with our people's vulnerability and the use of their emotions and genuine plight to advance our own narrow political ends. We therefore trust that our respected colleagues in the EFF are not harboring such intentions with the introduction of this debate on the draft resolution. In the 1992 Ready to Govern, we said concerning the farm workers that labor laws will protect them and their families, and we would make sure that farm workers get education, healthcare, and the right to recreation, decent housing, and the right to move freely and receive visitors. Perhaps the harshest of all issues confronting farm workers is security of tenure. Farm workers are at the mercy of landowners and are frequently forced off the land where they have worked for decades. This inhumane practice has led to the mushrooming of informal settlements along the N1 National Road in the Western Cape province, with thousands of people living under the most squalid conditions. It is the intention of the ANC to redistribute land to those who work it, as resolved by the Congress of the People in 1955. In order to realize our agrarian reform, we have passed a number of progressive pieces of legislation meant to improve and better the living conditions of farm workers and the Security of Land Tenure Act of 1997. ESTA is one such legislation. Given the reality of farm evictions and the mushrooming of informal settlements populated by farm workers, it is quite apparent that landowners have not fully embraced the spirit and intent of ESTA. On the contrary, they have neither approached this national crisis of farm evictions and security of tenure from a humanitarian point of view, nor considered the extent of gross human rights violation. We are a nation that is founded on democratic ideals, and as a parliament, and specifically our Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, we have gone to great lengths to fulfilling our duty of oversight, and our parliamentary constituency offices are accessible to all our citizens living in the farming communities. Constituency offices play a very critical role as a contact center between our citizens and their parliament. And these offices do refer our people to different relevant government departments for service delivery. Honorable Deputy Speaker, land justice will remain at the heart of our struggle for agrarian transformation that will effectively address the plight of our farm workers. For some, it is easy to forget the deep-rooted nature of scars left on our social fabric by the South African Native Land Act of 1913 that Saul Plaatje described as, I quote, a legislative monstrosity that rendered the majority of our people as pariahs in the land of their birth. It is therefore mind-boggling that over the past 26 years, the phenomenon of farm evictions have continued unabated, as if there is no sensitivity to this reality, or that such agendas are driven by parochial class interests, hell-bent on fostering adversarial relations between farmers or landowners and those who give their lives to build and sustain the agricultural economy. The plight of some 20,000 farm dwellers at risk of eviction, arising from about 1,200 cases in the Drakenstein municipality in the Western Cape alone, was a highlight during a protest against farm evictions by women on farms last year. We must continue to encourage all social partners, NGOs and human rights agencies all over the country to deepen the activism, raise awareness, and engage the formal agricultural sector to avoid this looming disaster. This is a specter that South Africans can ill afford, as it will cause untold human suffering and put those who are the most vulnerable in our society in an even more perilous position. Honorable Deputy Speaker, please allow me to briefly address the draft resolution on the establishment of an ad hoc committee to conduct a comprehensive review of the living and working conditions of farm workers in South Africa. Given the mammoth task that confronts us on the reconstruction and the economy recovery plan of our country, we take great note of the role that the agricultural sector can play in growing our economy. And for this untold, the agricultural sector has to be stabilized and a conducive environment to be created. We all hope that all our citizens are aware of the challenges faced by our nation and the work towards building a post-COVID-19 transformative and inclusive agrarian economy. The call for an ad hoc committee is ill-conceived, as it detracts from the priorities at hand and would be duplication of the functions of oversight that the Portfolio Committee is tasked with. We do not support this draft resolution, to establish such an ad hoc committee, as it is our conviction that the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development is well capable in exercising oversight on the work done towards the improvement of these living conditions of the farm workers in the agricultural sector. I therefore, Honorable Deputy Speaker, want to invite our colleagues in the EFF to raise these issues within the Portfolio Committee. So when we do our oversight next, we can prioritize going to seeing farm workers in their areas. In traveling during the past weekend from George coming to Worcester during our ad hoc committee on Section 25, we witnessed the atrocities that farm workers are experiencing. We had to be exposed to farm workers packed like sardines at the back of trucks. And this is totally unacceptable, strips the dignity of farm workers. And we want to ensure that we invite our colleagues in the EFF and honorable members to come on an oversight, particularly to the Poland area, to go and see the challenges our people are facing in Thembalethu, Didorens, and the other areas within and around the Western Cape. I thank you.
Honorable Lutrick, please speak to us.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The agricultural sector and all those involved in it play a critical role in the well-being of every citizen in this country. It is therefore important that the interests of farmers and farm workers alike.
Honorable Lutrick, just hold on. Yes, yes, honorable member. Yes, honorable member. Yes, honorable member.
Yes. I was saying to Honorable Mandela that his invitation
No.
We know the
Honorable Mandela is not honorable member. Honorable member, no, you should stop. Honorable member, you should stop. That's not a point of order. You can't want to politique even beyond a member's time. That's incorrect. You can express your disagreement better outside, and Honorable Mandela will be able to respond to you there. Not in a time that is given to another member. Sorry, Honorable Lutrick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It is therefore important that the best interests of farmers and farm workers alike be given the attention and support it deserves, and that everyone is treated with dignity and respect. It is in this context that the draft resolution brought to the House today by the EFF has to be considered. Although this mini-plenary, as we know, cannot vote on the resolution, debating the topic is important. But we have to note that a resolution based and introduced by making sweeping statements, using blanket accusations, and aiming at causing division and animosity does more harm than good. And I could also hear from the Honorable Mandela that the focus is primarily and curiously only on one province. So the resolution as it stands is a disservice to the very farm workers that it purports to support. And therefore the DA will, if this draft resolution is tabled in the House, the DA will submit an amendment to the resolution indicating that the House notes that the agricultural sector in this country is an important contributor to the economy and food security, that the future of this sector is dependent on the well-being of everyone involved in the sector, acknowledges that all farm workers should enjoy the respect and working conditions consistent with the labour and relevant legislation in the country, and also further notes that many farmers and agricultural organisations have expressed their concern regarding any maltreatment of farm workers and their families and non-compliance of current labour requirements, and that they actively act against any such instances. And also realises that the farming community, including farmers, farm workers and their families, play an integral role in the rural communities of the country, and therefore establishes an ad hoc committee in terms of Rule 253 to conduct a comprehensive review of the conditions of farm workers across the country, including all the work that has been done within and by the agricultural organizations in the country, make an assessment of the legislation affecting farm workers, and then make recommendations for any amendments should it be necessary, and to address inconsistencies with the current labor legislation. Conduct public hearings with interested and affected parties, and it consists of 11 members as follows: ANC 6, DA 2, EFF 1, and the other parties 2, and exercise these powers provided for in Rule 167. And then also sets the deadline as agreed to by the National Assembly. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Madokwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think before I start, I think it's important that I inform Honorable Mandela that it is actually the EFF that took the parliament to the farmers. Sorry, my network. Sorry about that. My network was giving me problems. I can start again. I just wanted to say to Honorable Mandela that it is actually the EFF that took those farmers of Boland to court and actually won the case. And then I just want to start with my speech, Honorable Chairperson, that roughly 7 years into democratic South Africa, in 2001, there was a loud outcry in the country about the brutality faced by farm workers at the hands of farmers in this country. This resulted in a study between June 2001 and August 2003 by the Human Rights Commission titled Inquiry into Human Rights Violations in Farming Communities. This study, as with many more before and many after, highlighted what we should all be ashamed of, that millions of Black South Africans who live in privately owned farms belonging to whites had the most insecure rights to land, and that despite the Constitution and laws such as the Extension of Security of Tenure Act and the Labor Tenants Act, farm workers and farm dwellers were extremely vulnerable to evictions. There was little compliance with labor legislation, and that farm workers were overworked and underpaid. And in some instances, especially in the Western Cape, there was prevalence of the DOP system, in which farm workers were paid with wine rather than with money. Women, seasonal workers, illegal immigrants, and even children were subjected to the vilest forms of exploitation by farmers. These are but few of the findings that were made, Chairperson. And up to this day, nothing has changed. Things have only gotten worse instead. Numerous other studies have been done, which show that even today, Chairperson, farm workers and those who live on farms are the most vulnerable to abuse, to exploitation, and to degrading living conditions. We now know that there are almost 3 million Black South Africans who live in these farms, either as workers or as dwellers. We know that they work under inhumane conditions. Many of them are not paid the basic wage, which we still maintain, Chairperson, is not a living wage and should be increased. And that in many instances, farmers unlawfully deduct these salaries. We also know that over 2 million farm workers and farm dwellers have been evicted from farms since 1994, despite the constitutional and legal framework that should guide the relations between farm workers and farm owners. Chairperson, in South Africa today, farm workers and farm dwellers are, as Sol Plaatje once said, not only slaves, but pariahs in the land of their own birth. As the legislative arm of government, it is our responsibility to go and find out the true extent of the brutality under which our people live and work in these farms. It is only through such an extensive engagement with farm workers and farm dwellers that we would be able to know the shortcomings of our legislative measures. These conversations should extend to communities around farms, as they too are direct recipients of this brutality. We have in the past 26 years, including 2020, heard horrific stories of some of these experiences, where children were killed for picking up sunflowers, the coffin case of Mpumalanga, and most recently, the banning and eviction of traditional healers from a sacred ancestral site called the Motouleng Fertility Caves in Free State in April of this year. We need a comprehensive approach, Chairperson, to deal with the living and working conditions of farm workers. And this approach must be inclusive of a number of government departments, such as the Department of Labor, Department of Human Settlements and Water and Sanitation, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Police. The number of legislative amendments may be needed at the end in order to tighten the protection of rights that farm workers and farm dwellers should enjoy as full citizens of this country. Among these must be a moratorium on the eviction of farm workers and farm dwellers until a proper legislative framework has been passed. There must also be immediate enforcement of the sectoral determination on the salaries of farm workers. If we are truly representatives of the people's voice in this parliament, we should all be unanimously supporting this call. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let's invite Honorable Ngwezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable members, very few will dispute that farm workers remain a poor and a vulnerable group. From the outset, we need to acknowledge that the matter is complicated and that it triggers many issues such as labor rights, farm evictions, and access to land. However, we also need to acknowledge the fact that the establishment of yet another ad hoc committee to investigate the matter might not be the solution. We need to use the tools we already have to assist this vulnerable group. We need to ask why these tools are not being used. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We already have progressive laws aimed at protecting farm workers. In 2006, for instance, the then Minister of Labor, in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, established a sectoral determination that outlines the basic conditions for the employment of farm workers, provides details on how deductions, it enforces minimum wages to be paid to farmers, to farm workers, provides details on deductions allowed, as well as the calculation of wages. And it further stipulates that a farm worker must be provided with a written contract. The question is, do farm workers know about their rights in terms of the sectoral determination? What is government doing to ensure compliance and ensure information reaches those most vulnerable groups? A 2019 research report by the NGO Women on Farms Project titled Violation of Farm Workers' Rights in Post-Apartheid South Africa, in fact found that more than 55% of the 343 farm women interviewed for this study were not aware of the sectoral determination. About 40% of the respondents did not even have a written contract of employment. This is serious, honorable members. Where are the labor inspectors? What does the Minister of Labor have to say about this? Colleagues, we have the laws providing protection. We have a new national minimum wage, base rate entitling farm workers to a minimum wage of 18.68 rand per hour. But this means very little if it is not enforced. We cannot keep on talking about investigating matters and do little to enforce protection. On access to land, we have to be honest. There is extensive evidence that government has been bitterly slow in providing equitable access to land. Land reform is steeped in corruption and greed and not focused on the poor. This is not the Constitution's fault. Until we seriously address the failures, we will not advance land reform. Talk is very cheap. The establishment of yet another committee might create the impression that we are intent on helping this vulnerable group. However, this is just a talk. We believe in enforcement as the IFP. We believe in action. We believe in showing up and holding those assigned to do this work accountable. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let's invite Honorable Breed.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let us look at the facts. Agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to our current economy. It is also one of the biggest employers currently and one of the only sectors to have shown a positive curve in terms of employment during this current recession and pandemic. A person always expects the EFF to shout about the same old stereotypical apartheid rhetoric we have become so used to, but the absolute vilification of farmers have reached a new low, even for them. This motion is nothing else than a cheap politicking by a party that has become out of touch with reality and its own constituents.
Listen to this one.
Die meerderheid van boere behandel hul werkers goed. Die meerderheid boere het ook goeie verhoudinge met hul werkers en die meerderheid boere en hul werkers weet dat sonder mekaar sal hul buite vergaan. Wat die agbare Matthias besig is om te doen, is om goedkoop politiekerheid te maak van arbeidsaangeleenthede en mense se lewens. If the EFF are actually aware of offences against farm workers, why do they not go and lay criminal charges at SAT? Why not? Why do we request another talk shop in the form of an ad hoc committee? What will a talk shop mean to the people on the ground? These people that are allegedly being treated so heinously. The EFF mentions legislative amendments, but we already have legislative amendments that are more in favour of the employee than the employer. We have legislation that gives more power to traders than owners. The current economic climate, this
Yes, what's the point of order? Honorable Breed, give us a moment. What's the point of order?
Will the member on the podium take a question, Chair?
Will you, Honorable Breed?
No, Chairperson, I will not.
Because Jay's
Thank you. It's okay. Proceed. No. Honorable Member, comply with the rules. Go ahead, Honorable Breed.
In the current economic climate, this restrictive legislation makes it difficult for the agricultural sector to create jobs. What role will an ad hoc committee have if we already have labour inspectors? Inspectors that should be vigilant and should be doing their jobs. Maybe you should start by investigating that, Honourable Member. Let us be clear. Agriculture will always be one of the biggest contributors to our economy, but it does not have to be one of our biggest contributors in terms of employment or job creation. Ek lees nou een Sondag van 'n vervoermaatskappy in Henley Klip wat meer as 200 werkers moes aflê en sy deure moes sluit na betogers in EFF drag en na bewering ook deur die EFF gemobiliseer die maatskappy se bates aan die brand gesteek het. Dit is ook wat in die landbousektor gaan gebeur. The EFF are going to cost people their income and their livelihoods.
On a point of order, Chair.
Innovation and automation.
On a point of order, Chair.
What's the point of order?
The point of order. Honourable Chair, the point of order I'm making is that Honourable Breed makes a serious allegation of failed fires, and that allegation is malicious. If there's anything,
Honourable Member, that's a political response.
If there's anything that the EFF will do to protect the land, not to bend land.
Honourable Member,
I
no.
appeal on you to ask
Honourable Matthias, no. Honourable Matthias, no. You have a chance to speak at the end of this debate. You can't politique. I want to repeat that. That's not a point of order. There's nothing about
Chair, on a point of order.
No violation of anybody's privilege. Yeah.
On a point of order, Chair.
Conclude.
On a point of order, Chair. Chair, this racist lady that are speaking there now are continuing to
Honourable
put this
Member,
accusation that the chairperson has led.
Honourable
member.
You will withdraw that.
What must I withdraw?
You will withdraw calling Honourable Member racist.
She have called the EFF than a party that are burning land. So she can't withdraw that.
Don't continue to talk. You must withdraw that statement.
Okay, I withdraw the lady. That party of racist, the FF plus the party of racist, white racist.
Point of
Honourable Member, your withdrawal
Point of order,
must
Honourable
not be
Chairperson.
conditional.
Can
You
we
are
get order, please,
continuing
Chairperson?
to make a
Deputy Speaker, on
mistake.
a point of order.
You are not allowed to make a conditional withdrawal, Honorable Member.
No,
and you are
Deputy
making a
Speaker.
conditional withdrawal.
I will withdraw, Deputy Speaker. I will withdraw, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Member, your time is almost expired. You have 30 seconds to finish.
Thank you, Chairperson. I had it as a minute, but I will continue. Chairperson, let me be clear, and Honorable Matiase, luister asseblief. If there's wrongdoing, contraventions and ill treatment of workers, go and lay complaints. Don't come to vilify the people who provide food for a nation and create employment to millions. Farmers are not the enemy of workers. The EFF are the enemy of job creation and workers.
Such a racist party.
Point of order, Chair.
But this is out of order.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, on a point of order.
Now.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
What's the point of order?
Deputy Speaker, this can't be allowed. And I ask you to please apply the rules. No, you have not. Because Honorable Deputy Speaker, with due respect, throughout the member's speech, the honourable member has made
Honourable member
has disrupted his speech.
Honourable
to such an extent that at time, no, Deputy Speaker,
you are not adding any value. You are not adding any value. Allow us to run the meeting.
I ask you to call those members to
Honourable
order.
member, you are not adding any value. You are interrupting a member, and I've been acting and talking to these members. Why do you want to complicate it by adding your own voice to it as well?
You've not once.
Honourable members, can you stop what you're doing?
Reprimanded, not once.
Remove vessels from this, Deputy Speaker.
Remove Mautewe from this.
Honourable members, can you please be orderly? You have no right to tell me what to do. I've been talking to these members to stop, and I've acted on them, demanded that they withdraw, and you claim that I haven't once sanctioned them. You are out of order yourself. Finish your remarks, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, I will just finish up, and I will say that the Honourable Matiase and the rest of his EFF need to listen, because the farmers are not the enemy of workers in South Africa. The
We're coming for your farm, We're coming for your farm.
Of workers and of food security in the South Africa. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Mauti, you're out of order in making those claims you are making in the House. You shouldn't even dare repeat them. You will be thrown out of the House. You can't be speaking like that in the House.
Deputy Speaker, it's Natasha Mazzoni speaking, and I'd like to raise a point of order.
Yes, Natasha. Yes, Honourable Natasha.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, a member of the EFF has just made an outlandish claim that they are coming for her farm. Now, that is not only breaking the rules of protocol in terms of free debate and freedom of speech in the House, it is also, in fact, breaking the rule of privilege and powers and privileges and ethics in terms of Parliament. Deputy Speaker, I would like you to please request the Hansard copy of that. I note that this virtual meeting is being recorded. I would like the member to be referred immediately to the Ethics Committee as well as the Powers and Privileges Committee. And Deputy Speaker, I would ask that the member withdraws the statement as well immediately. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
No, thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member, I don't need to refer it to any Hansard to be looked at. I heard her, and I said that she has no business to make those remarks in the House. We will follow it up, though, so that we act on the kind of language members use in the House, specifically Honourable Mauti. I heard her clearly. We will report back to the House.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I appreciate your assistance greatly.
Honourable members, is the UDM present in the House?
Deputy Speaker.
Yes,
Honourable Deputy
Honourable
Speaker.
Member. Yes.
Deputy Speaker, you know, it's so disingenuous for the Honourable Mazzoni to forever put a carrot in front of our eyes of the Ethics
What's
Committee.
the point of order, Honourable Member?
Don't attend to a member that were in
Honourable
talks
Member?
during House sitting, were those
What's
members
your
also
point
sent
of order?
to an Ethics Committee. She must stop putting a carrot here of Ethics Committee and
Honourable
thinking we
Member,
are scared to
you
lose the
have
salary.
no,
She must stop
Honourable
threatening
Member,
us
that's
like
not
that.
a point of order.
You know
Honourable
your
Member, that's
talks
not a point
members.
of order.
Chair.
Can we have the UDM? Is it present? The ATM?
Speaker.
Is the ATM present? Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Honorable speakers, it's your turn. My apologies, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As we stand in the House today, the ACDP is dealing with more than 25 families facing evictions on farms in just one municipality here in the Western Cape. The emotional impact of these on the social and emotional well-being of our people is devastating. Agbare voorsitter, ek is 'n plaaskind en het persoonlike ondervinding van die lekker van plaaslewe en ook die emosionele seer wat kom wanneer jy van 'n plaas verjaag word. Die landbousektor in sy geheel is van kardinale belang vir die ekonomie. Hierdie sektor bevat groot potensiaal vir die ekonomiese groei en stabiliteit van ons land. Die welstand van plaaswerkers kan nie in isolasie van hierdie feite hanteer word nie. Plaaswerkers is fundamentele skakel in die voorsieningsketting en in die stabiliteit van Suid-Afrika en so ook die landbousektor. Maar dit is belangrik om die politiek te skei van die sosiale ontwikkeling van plaasgemeenskappe. Die politieke spel is baie keer die grootste struikelblok vir die verdere sosiale ontwikkeling wat moet plaasvind om die sektor te verander ten bate van die mense wat die grond bewerk en ons kos verpak. Dit is 'n werklikheid dat daar mense is wat in haglike omstandighede 'n bestaan voer op plase en dat daar 'n magswanbalans is wat baie keer uitgebuit word tot groot emosionele skade van ons mense. Die omstandighede waarin sommige plaasmense lewe en werk is 'n menseregte issue and we cannot ignore abuse and economic exploitation. The causative effect of this has a generational impact that dooms generations into a cycle of poverty. Economic growth and the development of every player in the farming community needs to go hand in hand. Political advantage can also not be sought at the expense of the people. Ons mag nie polities bal speel ten koste van mense nie. Ons moet besef die groot moontlikhede wat bestaan in landbou en ons moet dit laat gebeur deur die welstand en sosiale verbetering moet ons laat gebeur en ons moet mense eerste stel. The question is, what would be the aims of an ad hoc committee and what would be the scope of such a committee? How will such a committee contribute to achieve the aims of developing and implementing new and innovative policies that will create an agriculture sector that benefits all involved? How will it ensure social transformation and improve social conditions of farm workers, all while recognizing the vital role of this sector for economic growth and stability for the nation as a whole? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Let's have Honourable Masipa from the DA, because UDM and ATM don't seem to be present in the House. I did request them. Go ahead, Honourable Masipa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Sensationalism is the presentation of stories in a way that is intended to provoke public interest at the expense of accuracy. Generalization is taking a few facts and making a broader, more universal statement. It is unfortunately typical of the Red Beret to sensationalize an otherwise significant topic in the South African agricultural discourse. No seasonal farm worker goes for days without food. No worker these days in South Africa is paid with wine instead of money. All conditions of employment are regulated in South Africa today. So the generalization is in the motion are moot. There are no slaves on South African farms. However, like in all other sectors, there are those bad apples who feel that they are above the law. And we agree that in those cases, the law must take its course and Parliament must play an oversight role in protecting the constitutional rights of all, including the vulnerable farm workers. Let us look at the facts, Honorable Speaker. State SA's quarterly labor survey shows that if one compares farm workers with other low-skilled occupations, such as those working in construction as hand packers, gardeners, and domestic workers, the study found labor market outcomes for farm workers outperformed the others. Here are the official statistics, Honorable Deputy Speaker. 40% of farm workers receive paid leaves. Over 60% of farm workers have UIF deductions and have written contracts. On average, farm workers work 45 hours per week. The most recent census of commercial agricultural shows that in 2017, agriculture created 757,628 direct farm jobs, and the total wage bill of those was 36.7 billion. This is out of 121 billion debt that these farmers incur. These are the jobs that a capable government should be able to monitor and confirm or reject the motion that is brought by the EFF. However, there is a further anecdotal evidence from the census of farm workers done by a capable Western Cape government, of which it highlighted that those staying permanently on farms, over 88% of water, refuse, and waste removal services are provided by these farmers. 23% of electricity supply is from the farmers themselves. 71% of farm workers live on brick houses. These are many in-kind payments that are difficult to measure, Honorable Deputy Speaker. This census covered over 43,000 farm workers and has been conducted in the last 10 years by the Western Cape government to understand these issues. Farm workers were specifically asked to rate their level of satisfaction on a number of important issues. One was, here are some of the outcomes, of the survey, which was done 2014. 90% said they agree or strongly agree that they are happy to work as farm workers. Two, again, 88% agreed that they are treated with respect or dignity. Members of this August House, as I conclude, we must avoid entering a terrain of work without establishing facts. If there are evidence of problematic relationship between farm workers and farmers, it is a duty of this House to
Honorable
protect
Masipa, your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lesoma.
Now we recognize Honorable A.M. Sheikh Amin.
Sheikh Imam, thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable House Chair, let me start off by reminding my colleague, Honorable Masipa, maybe what he needs to do is come back to earth. Maybe he needs to join me and go out with me and go and visit the people in the farming areas, in the Drakensberg Paarl areas. Then and then only would he understand what the plight of the farm workers are. Had he been working with me during COVID-19, he will see how many people do not have water and sanitation and how many people are going hungry and the horrendous living conditions under which they live. But he's out of touch, out of reality. He might be correct in saying that 60% are now contributing to UIF. So what has happened to the other 40%? He doesn't tell you that. He talks about fetal alcohol syndrome. Yes, it's a problem. It's a disaster. And that is why the NFP have called for a specific fund to be put in place where farm owners should be contributing to this fund so that they can help these people, because social development does not have the resources to be able to deal with the serious problem in the Western Cape, parts of Eastern Cape and Northern Cape in particular, when it comes to farm workers who've been paid with alcohol previously. Fetal alcohol syndrome has a devastating effect from generation to generation. So if you stop paying them with alcohol today, Honorable House Chair, does not mean that you've eradicated the problem. And that's what I'd like my friend to understand from the Democratic Alliance. The 2011 consensus stats pointed out that 2.8 million, that's 19% of households of the South African population are involved in agriculture as farm workers. Of that, 5.1% had permanent employment, while 25.2 and 23.6% were limited and unspecified duration specifically. The minimum wage for the period 1st March to 2018 is 3,160 weekly, 731 rand. Now, let me tell you what farm owners are doing now. Increasingly employing foreign nationals as half the wages, and then what happens is reducing the employment of locals of South African descent. A Women on Farms project survey of more than 300 women who farm workers in the Western Cape and Northern Cape, 2017 found that almost half were paid less than the daily minimum wage, while more than 2/3 do not have access to toilets while working in the vineyards and were not provided with protective clothes despite being exposed to pesticides. In 2018, the national minimum wage was introduced. It was set to 20 rand per hour, but it is 18 rand for farm workers. This is less than the living wage and what is needed for households to buy a basic basket of food. In Drakenstein municipality alone, which I like to take my friend to and show him where the people are living with no toilets and no water. 1,200 pending farm evictions involving about 20,000 people were carried on the court roll in 2018 alone. So I think my friend from the Democratic Alliance must come to earth, come and join me. Let's go there and face the reality. But national.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Your time is up.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now I recognize the honorable member from the AIC. AIC. That will brings us to recognizing Honorable Bambana. Bambama. Honorable Bambama, over to you.
Chairperson.
Over to you, honorable member. You may proceed.
Chairperson, Honorable Babana will be speaking now. It will be Honorable Stein as the second last speaker.
Okay, you should have. Thank you. You should have advised us.
It was advised, Chair. The last speakers list was changed.
Okay, it's fine. Over to you, honorable member. Honorable member from the DA, over to you.
House Chair, the honourable member has been muted.
May you, okay, we'll sort it out. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm speaking as a child of a farmer and also as a wife of a farmer. I've been living my whole life on a farm, Chair, and I think I understand what is happening on farms. Chairperson, it is also important to note dat op plase bly ons werk ver van dokters, skole en hospitale en dit maak dat ons met mekaar saamleef in hierdie omstandighede. Dit is ook belangrik dat ons besef, daar is nog steeds plaaswerkers wat in haglike omstandighede woon en werk en hierdie areas moet geïdentifiseer word en ondersoeke moet gedoen word. Dis vir daardie rede belangrik dat die departement van arbeid hulle werk doen en seker maak dat waar klagtes aangemeld word, dit onmiddellik moet geïdentifiseer word. Voorsitter, maar is ook belangrik om seker te maak dat hierdie vrotappels nie alle landbouers onder dieselfde kam kan skeer nie. In 2013 was daar reeds 'n soortgelyke mosie voor hierdie huis na aanleiding van die doringsplaaswerkerstaking. Daar was 'n verslag wat saamgestel is, wat vrygestel is deur die internasionale arbeidsorganisasie wat gekyk het na die lewe en werksomstandighede van plaaswerkers. En dit is belangrik dat ons voortbou op hierdie verslag en kyk spesifiek na redes van uitsettings en ander voorstelle wat vandag hier gemaak is. Voorsitter, een van die redes waarom die sluiting plaaswerkers nie meer op plase bly nie, is nie net uitsettings nie. Daar is ook plaasskole wat gesluit is en dan kinders wat nie skoolvervoer het nie, moet dan na dorpe beweeg. Ouers het dus in daai omstandighede besluit om eerder in dorpe te gaan woon. Daar is ook ander omstandighede wat maak dat plaaswerkers nie meer in plase woon nie. Een van daardie omstandighede is dat die klinieke en mobiele klinieke nie meer omkom in plase nie en mense het baie min toegang tot gesondheidsgebiede in hulle areas. Daarom beweeg mense dorpe toe. Daar's beter geleenthede vir hulle kinders en ook hulle self en dit kan nie net alles onder die kam geskeer word van omstandighede op plase nie. Die belangrikheid, voorsitter, wat ek vandag hier moet maak, is die baie goeie werk wat gedoen is vanaf 1994 onder landbouers self. Die omstandighede van plaaswerkers wat opgegradeer is. Ek sal graag wil gaan kyk na die areas wat Honorable Sheikh van praat. Maar ek sal hom graag ook wil gaan wys in areas waar landbouers baie harde werk gedoen het om byvoorbeeld klinieke op te rig op plase waar daar kleuterskole gesit is, waar mense opleiding geskied sodat plaaswerkers self kan opgradeer en selfs kinders na universiteite toe kan stuur vir beter omstandighede. Dit is ook belangrik om te kyk, voorsitter, na die werk wat gedoen is, onder andere opleiding van plaaswerkers, en AgriSeta moet hier uitgewys word. AgriSeta het oor jare hulle plig versuim deur plaaswerkeropleiding te doen. Ons is bewus daarvan dat die vorige CEO van die AgriSeta huidiglik ondersoek word deur die Hawks as gevolg van korrupsie wat in daai omstandighede plaasgevind het. Ons wil ook graag kyk na die 1200 take wat daar blyklik in Drakensberg al gemeld is. Daar is geen boere wat op hierdie stadium vir my inligting kan verskaf oor sake in daai gebiede nie. Dit is belangrik dat wanneer mense hierdie tipe van aantuigings maak, dit opgevolg moet word, sodat ons van feite kan praat en dat ons nie aan mekaar hierdie tipe van benullighede bespreek wanneer daar nie voorbeelde is nie. Ek wil ook vir die EFF duidelik stel dat huidiglik is daar 'n plaas in Brits omgewing waar daar besig is om 'n toi-toi plaas te vind voor 'n plaas en sonder dat feite in ag geneem is. Die werkers in daai area gaan dalk
order, Chairperson, order.
Die EFF besig is om politiek te maak uit 'n arbeidssituasie wat maklik opgelos kan word.
On a point of order. On a point of order.
Nie mekaar aanmoedig.
On a point of order, Chairperson. On a point of order, Chairperson.
Moeilik met mekaar saamwerk waar
order, Chairperson.
Waar mense doodgemaak word.
On a point of order, Chairperson. On a point of order, Chairperson.
Uitbuit van situasies nie, maar dit moet saamwerk om oplossings te vind. Dankie, voorsitter.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
I think the chairperson is frozen.
Thank you, I'm back.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
That we are now calling honorable member.
On a point of order, Chairperson. On a point of order, Chairperson.
From the ANC.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Sorry.
Honorable Minor, point of order.
Am I now audible, honorable members?
Yes, you are, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable member who just spoke now from the podium, may you don't do that again. Your time was up, and I indicated to you, you opted not to listen. Don't repeat it again if you are given a chance to speak. Thank you very much, honorable members. May we then recognize Honorable Mdabe from the ANC?
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Honorable Tlawin.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think, Chair, I fully respect your ruling, Chair, but she can't get away just with a slap on the back and stuff. She purposely did it and just continued. And this must also be referred to the Rules Committee and the Ethics Committee because she purposely did it. She heard your ruling and you have ruled it several times. She purposely made that she didn't hear you and nothing is happening. I fully respect your ruling, but we need to also take further steps with it. IT should have muted her mic. I don't know why did IT allow her to continue.
Honorable Mazone, I've had Honorable Tlawini's point of order and the way forward. Honorable Mazone, your point of order.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, I would like to point out that there was clearly a problem with the communications. I certainly did not hear any point of order being called, and neither could I hear you, Honourable Chair, for a certain amount of time. The honourable member was not at the podium. She was joining from the virtual platform, and I think that she, along with many of us, could not hear anything coming from the chair. She had no idea that she was being called to order, so I would ask that a Hansard recording is given. If the honourable member would stop interrupting me and turn off her microphone, she'd be doing not only me but South Africa a great deal of help. House Chair, I'd like the Hansard to be called, and I would like us to see which members could and which members could not hear the ruling made from the chair at the time, because there was obviously an unstable connection coming through from the National Assembly table. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, honourable members. I've heard you and I've made a ruling. Honourable Mdabe.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair, and good afternoon to honourable members. On the 16th November 2012 in Ashton, a small agricultural town in the Western Cape, Mr. Gert Menes, a farm worker, was interviewed by the magazine called Via Kemsina. It was during the biggest strikes in the history of the farms in the Western Cape. For 3 weeks, workers blocked the N1 between Worcester and Towns River. In the interview, the farm worker said, and I quote, "My name is Gert. I've worked on the same farm for 20 years. My life on the farm is terrible, but I don't even want to start my complaint about earning low wages. I just want to be respected. I don't want to work in fear and to be scared." Farm workers decided to go on strike, demanding a living wage of 150 rand per day. The average wage that farm workers were earning was between 60 rand and 80 rand a day. Within 2 weeks, the strike has spread to over 25 rural towns, mainly in the vines and the fruit sectors. The farm workers' strike gave expression of anger, the frustration, the deprivation, and the extreme poverty under which farm workers lived. This was a historic moment because it was the first time in the history of the Western Cape that farm workers revolted. In the end, the Employment Conditions Commission received our submissions and recommended a rise to 105 rand per day as a minimum wage, and allow farmers who claimed that they were unable to pay the increases the opportunity to apply for an exemption. The dire position of farm workers, their low wages, and almost slave-like conditions on some farms in South Africa, especially in the Western Cape, has a long history. In the beautiful and bountiful Western Cape, this legacy is interlinked with slavery and the dispossession of the indigenous Khoi and San people. The Farm Workers' Rebellion has to be located within a system of commercial agriculture that is orientated to the export market. Agriculture continues to be a significant sector of the South African economy, employing more than 700,000 people and constituting the country's most labor-intensive export sector. It is also one of the sectors of the South African economy that has very limited transformation. Commercial farm workers have endured centuries of exploitation and abuse until the mid-1990s, when the ANC government passed progressive legislation that confers rights to workers aimed at improving their living and working conditions, including through a minimum wage in the form of a sectoral determination. However, violations of workers' rights have remained widespread in the agricultural sector. Many farm workers have remained vulnerable as they face ongoing evictions, casualizations, and exploitation. The forms of violations of these rights are mainly in contracts, wages, non-compliance with occupational health and safety regulations. The debate on the conditions of farm workers in South Africa tends to lead to polarization, mostly along racial lines. The political parties in this house tend to pull the opposite pole of this racial divide. The Freedom Front Plus, which has positioned itself as a mouthpiece of those who have not yet embraced the Constitution and transformation, tries to cloud the debate as if there is an attack of Afrikaners. The DA, which should really call itself the Freedom Front Light or like Castle Light, advocates for interest of the same constituency, but with a light touch of opportunistic white liberalism. Like Hemen Mashaba, Musimai Mane, and recently Mbali Ntuli have realized that the DA does not stand for what it claims in its slogans, One South Africa for All. The EFF, on the other hand, while raises the right issue of social, racial,
Natasha Mazzoni, I'd like to raise a point of order, please.
Honorable Ndabe, point of order, Honorable Mazzoni.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, I rise on a point of order. I don't think the member who is currently speaking now has the permission of the ACE faction to make the comments that he just made about the DA members. And I would suggest for his own safety that he checks which faction he speaks for. Thank you, House Chair.
No, thank you. It's a point of political debate, Honorable Mazzoni. You may proceed, Honorable Ndabe.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The African National Congress is the only party that has a policy perspective that in its first instance locates the discussions correctly and also has a strategic and balanced approach to deal with problems.
Honorable Ndabe, Honorable Ndabe, Honorable Ntlangwini.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Sorry to disturb the Honorable Ndabe, but the threat that the Honorable Natasha Mazzoni made against the Honorable Ndabe must be withdrawn, Chair, state for his own safety. So it made it to believe that she have the safety of the Honorable Ndabe solely in her hands. She must withdraw such threats. We can't allow that.
Okay. Honorable members, I'll come back to that one. Honorable Ndabe, we may proceed. I'll come back to your view, Honorable
When
Natasha.
other parties enter the debate, they often deceive themselves and the public about the essence of what we are talking about. From an employment and labor's point of view, a farmer is an employer like any other company, regardless of their skin color or language they speak. As employers, farmers have the responsibility to comply with the Constitution and labor laws of the Republic of South Africa. Government has a responsibility to enforce compliance with all the laws. Trade unions have a duty to organize and represent farm workers and hold farmers and government to account for the failure to play their respective roles. One of the mandates of the Department of Employment and Labor is one of the reasons why the department exists is to regulate South African labor market for sustainable economic growth through appropriate legislation and regulations, inspections, compliance, monitoring, and enforcement, and the protection of human rights. The Department of Employment and Labor has 3 strategies in place to realize what I've already indicated earlier. It conducts advocacy sessions across all sectors of the South African economy, where the employer's obligation towards their employees, as well as employees' rights in the workplace in accordance with labor legislation and highlighted and mainstreamed. It is very important to engage all stakeholders in the sector, meaning all employer organizations, trade unions, bargaining councils, NGOs, and CBOs. And that is what the department does and what it must continue to do. The Director General has a program called DG Taking Services to the People. This program brings the services of the department to the communities. It is currently being undertaken in all 9 provinces. In addition, inspection of workplaces and enforcement of labor legislation are undertaken continuously by labor inspectors. Contrary to the allegation that government is doing nothing, I want to share some facts with honorable members of this House and the people of South Africa. In the year 1920 financial year, 9,939 employers failed to comply with labor laws, and 4,475 employers were referred to prosecution for non-compliance with labor laws. CCMA services have been reaching out to workers.
Thank you, Honorable Dabe. Your time is up. Honorable Dabe, your time is up. Thank you very much. Now we recognize Honorable from the COPE. 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 We will move to PAC. 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 That will allow us to move and recognize Honorable Stein from the DA. Honorable Stein.
House Chairperson, it's Natasha Mazzoni again. House Chair, there's obviously been a mistake with the National Assembly table. A new list was submitted to you. The Honourable Stein has already spoken. So
okay.
She's done her speech. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Okay, then we will pass the DA. No, Honourable.
Again, Chair, if you wanted to.
No, I don't. Thank you very much. Honourable members will move then, in light of what Honourable Mazzoni have said. Now I recognize the Honourable Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Land and Reform, Rural Development. Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, Honourable members, Honourable Ministers and Deputy Ministers. I greet you this afternoon on the 5th of November, normally known as Guy Fawkes Day during those days, MINI-PLENARY. Chairperson, the 5th of November is, as I have indicated, but it is also a day that brings back memories of our painful past. And it is a grim reminder of the evil apartheid system and its evil deeds. It was on the 5th of November, 1964, Chairperson, 56 years ago, that Vuyisile Mini was spending his last hours alive. And on the 6th of November, he faced the hangman and bravely walked to the gallows singing, Nansi ndoda emnyama Fairwood, Basopa Nansi ndoda emnyama. What a prophecy, Chairperson, a prophecy that had to come and definitely realized when that African giant, our first democratically elected head of state, President Nelson Mandela, on the 11th of February 1990, walked out of Vitafeste raising his clenched fist in a power salute. Vuyisile Mini was the leader of the struggle for liberation, a leader of the South African Congress of Trade Unions. I invoke his name today because he lived and died for the toiling masses and the workers of this country. As long, Chair, as farm workers do not enjoy the freedom and dignity and dignified conditions he died for, this government will never tire. It is because of this history that our democratic government, since its inception, had considered and passed various legislation and laws that have been alluded to by my colleagues here, because of the recognition that this freedom will never be freedom until the plight of farm workers, the most downtrodden, are realized in this country. I therefore want to say, Chair, as we enter this debate, we must soberly enter this debate. We must soberly enter it with the sole purpose of trying to find solutions for our country. I can unfortunately say, as I listened to members debating today here, I still want to say we as leaders of this country must really sober up and make sure that we are an example to the rest of the people here. I think that when we speak, we must be seen to be speaking for all South Africans. This democratic government will in no way, by the way, shy away from indicating its bias towards the farm workers, because they are on the receiving end. This is informed by our colonial history. This is informed by our apartheid history. Many speakers have alluded to this particular. So it is impossible not to consider favoring those vulnerable people, because to say that we should continue as if nothing has happened is like saying people who are running a marathon, others must stand far ahead of others and expect the same result at the end. So it is for that reason that this democratic government, in all its manifestations, in all its actions, ought to make sure that we alleviate the plight of farm workers. Just 3 weeks ago, Chairperson, at the gates of Parliament, I went out to receive a memorandum from an organization called Women on Farms. And I can safely say all their demands and requests are very true and genuine. And I think that as leaders of our people, we must really live amongst them. We must know their pain. And I really want to say to Honorable Shaik, it really would create a better person out of Honorable Masipa if you do take him with you in those visits, because it seems to be very far from reality of what is happening on the ground. The issues are there. They are glaringly facing us. All we need to do in solving them, we must not further polarize our country. We must know that we're creating and building blocks for a South Africa that would be peaceful, united, non-racial, and non-sexist. This particular government and this department chair has, because of that, been very much at work in relation to the Esther that so many have referred to here. But also realizing that even Esther itself had some loopholes. It is the 5th Parliament in its own right that initiated amendments to Esther so that we make sure that the plight of farm workers is considered, and it is considered to its fullest. Chair, I really want to make a special appeal, and I respect what Honorable Steyn is saying, that she is a daughter of a farmer and the wife of a farmer. Unfortunately, she has never been a daughter of a farm worker. And a farm worker has got another experience to a farm owner, and that has to be recognized. We must do everything in our power to make sure that the criminality that happens in the farms is dealt with, both by the farm owners and by those who break the law, whether they are farm workers or not. Chair, early this year, during lockdown 5, I visited Toes River, and there was an accident. 8 farm workers were killed going to work, and they were packed like sardines in a small buggy, and that does not really speak into the dignity of farm workers as fellow human beings. We can have all the laws, but I really want to say to our people and us as leaders, Let us not wait to be monitored in order for us to do the right things. Because we can pass all the laws, but people must be conscious of what is right and what is wrong. And I can assure you, sooner the expropriation of land without compensation is going to be a reality. And this is no threat. This government will really steer this parliament into taking the right decisions and make sure
Honorable
that
DM, start
we
wrapping
do,
up. Start
we
wrapping
do
up,
the right,
DM.
and make sure that we do the right thing. And one of the things that we have done, Chair, is to make sure that at the farms there are toll-free numbers so that farm workers, if they're discriminated against, they can be able to use those numbers. And we had offered them lawyers to assist them in their plight. So, Chair, I really want to say that as we go forward, this is an emotive issue, but we do not need an ad hoc committee. We have all the mechanisms to make sure that we implement what is right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Matthias, I recognize Honorable Matthias.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. It is now a known and a lived experience for the ANC to say something and do a direct opposite of what they say. This kind of hypocrisy must be harshly punished and be defeated in the 2021 municipal elections and beyond. Further, it is mischievous of Mr. Mandela to even think of this draft resolution as an attempt by the EFF to grandstand and to play with our people's miseries. Our people's lives on the farms are too precious to play with. This, Mr. Mandela must know. It is clear that no one can speak and prepare to speak on behalf of farm workers, and that responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of the economic freedom fighters. Honorable Chair, the ANC has rejected this call, a call for establishment of an ad hoc committee, because to investigate farm workers' condition is to expose the brutality meted out by white farmers against black farmers. Once more, the ANC did not disappoint in showing cowardice and its readiness to sell our people, especially farm workers and their families, on the altar of political expedience. It is indeed curious that the DA supports the draft resolution with an amendment, whilst at the same time call it sensational, and at the same time try hard to shift the goalpost away from the substantial and concrete proposal we're making. Honorable Chair, what also is curious is that the ANC, despite us appealing to both its members' conscience and consciousness, and also cautioning that if consciousness fails them, at least their conscience should guide them from the political dissonance. It is clear neither consciousness or conscience, which the ANC lacks, can save farm workers from the psychosis of the delusional in this parliament, such as house niggers, such as Mr. Masipa, and all those black people who rejected this draft bill. It is clear that this is a continuation of the struggle which falls on the shoulders of the EFF. The EFF shall sustain it until the land is retained and reclaimed back to our people. And thanks to Mr. Of the NLP to express your support to this move, and also pledge your support and invite all those delusional in the DA and in the ANC to join us in the cold field of public participation, and as we engage with our masses to get to understand the plight of farm workers and farm dwellers and their families, for which the ANC today has elected to bury.
Point of order, Chair.
Thank you.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable Bambama.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
The honorable member on the podium just called Mr. Nukuma Sipa and others house nigger. Could he please withdraw?
He didn't read.
I'll come back to that, Honorable Papam, because I didn't hear.
Are you giving him another 10 minutes?
I'll come back to you. No, honorable members, may we proceed? That concludes the debate. Now, honorable members, I call the first order of the day. We shall now proceed to the first order of the day, which is a consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. All petition from residents of Letsitele Town, Ward 23, Zanin, calling on Assembly to ensure that Zanini municipality abides by the laws, bylaws, and regulations, and that it implements the prescribed environmental and applicable zoning, as well as monitor and halt all illegal activities submitted by Honorable Member from D. van der Merwe from, yes, Honorable Member van der Merwe. Now I will recognize Honorable Mtambi, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Honorable Mtambi.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and greetings to all of you colleagues. This August House received a petition from the residents of Lesotho Town, Ward 23, with the prayer to ensure that Greater Zanin local municipality abides by its bylaws and other prescripts on rezoning and protection of the environment. The petition was submitted by the Honorable Desiree van der Walt, was about the illegal business activities which run against the municipality bylaws and the environmental regulations. In pursuit of the resolution of the problem of the community of Lesotho on illegal activities carried out in their town, their petition was brought to the attention of the Greater Zanini local municipality. Subsequent to the receipt of the petition, we then caused the municipality to appear before the Portfolio Committee on the 24th of June 2020. The main problems on the petition were roaming kettles and then the informal mechanics. The municipality, during its appearance this week before the Portfolio Committee on the 3rd of November, it reported back on the resolution of issues raised by the community of Lesotho through a petition to this August House. This is how the municipality has resolved the issues based on their report to the Portfolio Committee. With regard to the roaming cattle, the problem of stray animals roaming in town arises from the proximity of the town to farms and villages as corroborated by the investigation. Due to the financial constraints, it is not feasible for the municipality to station a permanent traffic officer to deal with the problem. However, the municipality has identified spotters within the solid waste division in the Lesotho town who will report the sighting of stray animals for processing by the traffic officers. With regard to the informal mechanics, these people are on off short of a motor spare outlet in town. Of concern to the community is the oil spills and the debris which litter and contaminate the natural habitat. Then the municipality has reported to us that they've issued the mechanics with drip trays to prevent pollution. A refuse receptacle has been made available to prevent littering, and continuous monitoring will be done to ensure that informal mechanics.
Honorable Member, wrap up. Just try to wrap up, Honorable Member.
Yes. Then continuous monitoring will be done to ensure that informal mechanics do not operate their trade in a manner that disturbs the community. I must add that Honorable van der Walt was invited to the committee engagement with the municipality. She registered her satisfaction with the prompt and resolute attendance to the petition. Then we want to also appreciate the local municipality under the leadership of Mayor Maripe Mangena and Municipal Manager Matlala, who have consistently demonstrated responsiveness to problems of its citizens. I want to thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable van der Walt.
House Chair, I am speaking on behalf of Honorable van der Walt. It is Celia Brink from the DA.
You may proceed.
Thank you, House Chair. Municipalities levy rates and taxes in agricultural and farming communities such as Letsitele because these contributions are meant to fund services. We have wall-to-wall municipalities in this country, and so we have to have wall-to-wall services. When Letsitele residents call on their local leaders and officials to enforce bylaws and attend to local problems, we do not expect these leaders to shrug their shoulders. In the time it took this petition to reach Parliament, the mayor and the municipal manager of Tzaneen could have attended to the problems complained of. It is clear that they did not do so before this reached the Portfolio Committee. Even if immediate solutions aren't possible, for heaven's sake, at least speak to members of your own community, including the local member of Parliament. Aside from basic bylaw enforcement, serious environmental concerns were raised about the disposal of used car oil by mechanics in the Letsitele area. That problem having been noted here in Parliament, the mayor and the municipal manager of Tzaneen should not plead ignorance if contamination of water and soil sources happen as a result of their indifference, although we hope that this issue will be resolved. A petition like this one should not have reached Parliament, and it wouldn't have reached Parliament if municipalities like Tzaneen did their work and spoke to their own residents. We hope that this will happen now. Thank you, Chair.
Very much, Honorable Member. That will bring us to Honorable Motsipe.
Thank you, Chairperson. My apology for not putting on my video due to network problem.
And also switch off the phone next to you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. We must be worried of racist opportunists who will want to use this parliament in order to entrench their racist idea of exclusivity. We do no longer live in the apartheid era, and there are no areas that are still reserved for people of European descent in this country. South Africans can go and conduct business anywhere in this country. This petition by the member of the DA sought to have this house intervene in order to somehow face the Tzaneen municipality to evict people who are trying to make a living for themselves by fixing cars and selling vegetables on the street. There is little to no concern about the livelihoods of these people who are not stealing anything from anyone, but merely using their skills to make a living. In the mind of the DA and those they are present, any encroachment by Black people in areas previously reserved for white is a threat. In their twisted logic, the presence of Black people who fix cars also represent lack of hygiene and criminality. We reject the petition and we support the committee view that nothing it warrants the intervention of the committee. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable, recognized Honorable from the UDM. No, wait, it's not Ngwezi, it's not, I'm calling UDM. Honorable from the ATM. Oh, I can see now. Then I'll go back to Honorable Ngwezi. Over to you, Honorable Ngwezi. I recognize you.
Siyathokoza sihlalo, sibingelele nosihlalo we-Portfolio Commission namalunga le-Portfolio Committee. Le declaration yethulwe egameni lenkosi ehloniphekile inkosi uLuthuli eyilungu le-Portfolio Committee. This report raises some fundamental questions. Among them, what is the role of Parliament? According to Parliament's website, its vision is to be an activist and a responsive people's parliament that improves the quality of life of South Africans and ensures an enduring equality in our society. Parliament further describes itself as the place where the members of Parliament look after your interest, and among others, lists the responsibilities of members as consulting with you the people and representing your views in parliament and helping people in their constituencies. It is important to remind ourselves that we are a people's parliament and ultimately that we are in service to our fellow South Africans. The report mentions that the petition was calling on the portfolio committee to assist this community, and that the residents appealed to the municipality to address these matters when were to no avail. And the submission of the petition to Parliament was the last resort. In contradiction to this, the municipal mayor and the municipal manager, despite allegedly having an open door policy, stated that they had not seen the petition and heard about it for the first time upon invitation to the portfolio committee meeting on the matter. Although the municipality might have not seen the petition, it is apparent that they were well aware of the issues being raised therein, and that the petitioners approached Parliament in the last desperate attempt for assistance. According to the report and the feedback from the municipality, interventions to prevent the illegal car repair activities and roaming of cattle have been explored through warning letters, the promulgation and gazetting of bylaws, as well as the identification of a new site for the repair activities. In light of the above, the municipality was tasked with furnishing the committee with a progress report by 21 November. The committee further observed that these matters did not warrant intervention at the portfolio committee level. Although this is a valid observation, we as members of parliament must never become so involved in the business of parliament that we forget the purpose of parliament. We are a people's parliament and should therefore have an open door policy for the people of South Africa if they feel that all other avenues open to them have been exhausted. Siyathokoza. Sihlalo wethu ohloniphekile.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Siyayemukela i-report.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member from UTM. Honorable Member from the UTM. Honorable Member ATM. Now I recognize Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam. We'll move to Honorable AIC. AIC. Honorable from COPE. 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 Honorable from PAC. PAC. I now recognize Honorable Mpumza from the ANC. Honorable Mpumza. Honorable Mpumza. It looks like Honorable Mpumza as well is not available. Honorable Mpumza. Honorable members, thank you very much. That will conclude the second order debate. Thank you very much. Now we'll move to the third order of the day. One minute, honorable members. Thank you very much, honorable members. Our apology with that. Now we'll move to the second order of the day, which is the consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Tourism on Transformation Charter in the Tourism Sector. Now I recognize Honorable Makubela. Honorable Makubela.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings, honorable members. Honorable members, the tourism industry is still untransformed 26 years into the democracy. Since the dawn of democracy in 1994, the government has enacted a number of policies and laws to bring the previously marginalized citizens into the mainstream economy, into the tourism sector. However, the pace of transformation has been pedestrian, and drastic measures are essential to expedite this process. In expediting transformation, the Portfolio Committee on Tourism has made an undertaking to conduct an annual assessment of the state of transformation in the tourism sector in South Africa. This will culminate in a state of transformation report issued by the committee every year in September. This report is the first annual report since the 6th Parliament. The purpose of this report is to provide tourism stakeholders with an overview of the strides made by the Portfolio Committee on Tourism thus far in an attempt to entrench transformation in the tourism sector, highlights the proposals for transformation for the tourism sector as suggested by South Africans, and make recommendations that have to be advanced by the Minister of Tourism and other portfolio committees which have an inherent role to play in enhancing transformation programs in South Africa. As part of compiling this report, the Portfolio Committee on Tourism issued a call for public submissions on transforming the tourism sector. This was a public participation method with bold moves towards rallying all the public and private sector stakeholders to speak with one voice in tackling the bottlenecks that hinder transformation in the tourism sector. The submissions highlighted a number of challenges and offered a wide array of proposals across various types of tourism and the tourism value chain at large. The recommendations of the report are grouped in 8 thematic categories, which include training and entrepreneurial development and the role of the youth, product development, access and maintenance of tourism attractions, broad-based Black economic empowerment, opposition to state interventions in tourism transformation, embracing information and technology, which is a 4IR, creating a sustainable tourism future in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and tourism education. This wide array of categories cuts across many government departments in all the three spheres of government. This indicates that the nature of the tourism sector therefore needs a whole government approach. In facilitating this whole government approach, the report lists a number of government departments and portfolio committees that are critical in driving tourism transformation in the country. It is against this background that the Portfolio Committee on Tourism requests a collaboration with other committees in facilitating transformation. Without this collaboration, we will still be on the same stagnant pace of transforming the tourism industry and the tourism sector. I submit a chairperson to Parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable De Freitas. Honorable Freitas.
Chairperson is Honorable Klanganani Gumbi that will speak.
Okay, she or he, she can proceed. My apology. Honorable Member, over to you. Honorable Member, we're waiting for you. We shall now proceed if Honorable Pretas is not available. We'll move to Honorable Moteka. Honorable Moteka, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, there is a vast potential for growth and development that could be catalyzed by tourism in this country. But this potential has yet to be fully understood and taken advantage of. While it is claimed that tourism currently employs over 1.5 million people, contributing about 9% to the country's GDP, we are of the firm view that this potential could be much more. Largely, this potential is constrained by lack of transformation in
what happened to the DA?
And by the dominant role established such as some and private.
Okay, and see.
Then mute your microphone, Chairperson. Mute your microphone, Chairperson.
My apology, members. Okay, you may proceed, Honorable Member.
A minute, Chair. We were not hearing.
Oh, it's fine, Honorable, it's fine. Let's proceed, Honorable Member.
I was interrupted. Can I start from the beginning?
Not in the beginning. I'll give you 1 minute extra. Proceed.
Okay, largely this potential is not constrained, is constrained by lack of transformation in this sector and by the dominant role played by established entities such as sandparks and private games reserves. Your own studies as Department of Tourism shows that there remains an untapped potential for cultural and historical tourism in this country, and that the majority of Black people do not tour the country as much as they should be. This is because some of the areas planted as tourist attraction have nothing to do with Black people, but everything to do with celebrating Eurocentric values. As much as tourism may be employing number of people it employs, there has been very little done to change the demographic makeup of real beneficiaries of tourism. The guest houses, game farms, and so on, people with land and who are able to capitalize on the land, they have to make lots of money. Tourists essentially come to see various landmarks that represent cultural and practice of the country. In our case, the majority of our people do not have the land, and all that the land enables tourism operators to benefit. Tourism, therefore, remains an enclave of those advantaged by apartheid with very little multiplier effects. The Transformation Charter does nothing to propose radical shifts in the tourism sector. The top leadership of all leading organizations in the tourist sector are either club of white males or white family couples and relatives. Tourism business in South Africa is led by club of white males with 1 or 2 Black faces as juniors. National Federation of Tourist Guides Association is led by a white family, friends, and 1 Black face as a junior. That alone, Chairperson, tells you why transformation in this industry is not going to happen unless confronted radically and aggressively by a developmental state that is not coward. The Transformation Charter is not even scratching the surface. So it has no potential to bring transformation in this country. We need the real fighters, the faithful fighters, fearless fighters to come and confront this racist economy.
we reject this report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm advised that Honorable Gumbi is back on the platform. Honorable Gumbi from the DA.
Hi, yes, Honorable Speaker, I hope you can hear me now. Honorable Speaker, let me be as clear as possible about where the DA stands on transformation and empowerment as opposed to where the ANC stands. We believe transformation means empowering people so that they can look after themselves and live a life with dignity. The ANC believes, on the other hand, that government should be empowering itself so that they can decide the fortunes of citizens, and in the end, only empowering again and again a small group of connected cronies. And so, let me lay this case out for you in government policy. It is why during lockdown, we wanted financial support to go to all those small businesses who are battling, the mini restaurants, the guest houses, and the bed and breakfast, all who create jobs so that they can continue to look after themselves. Instead, government was too busy fiddling with how certain people looked in terms of who needed help. All this during the worst global pandemic in our lifetime. The best empowerment comes from jobs, a growing economy, and thousands of small businesses which support our population. Speaker, South Africa has an ugly history. One of the most disgusting racial discrimination and economic exclusion through a violent government. To fix this ugly history, we need to do everything that is the opposite of the old regime. Where there was racial discrimination, we must bring non-racialism. Where there was economic exclusion, we must bring businesses and jobs. And where there is government power, we must bring people power. And so, what are the things that can be done now to directly empower people and not the government? For months, for instance, the Portfolio Committee has been speaking about making the star grading of places of accommodation compulsory but free of charge for businesses. This is something that all political parties agree on because it is a major barrier for all of those who are excluded. So what is the holdup? Why does it seem that it is the minister and the executive holding up this policy move? The minister should be ensuring that the department immediately provides for this free grading as to all those places of accommodation so that we bring in many new businesses and jobs to the economy. Honorable Speaker, South Africa is going through an economic and jobs crisis created by the ANC. The illogical government regulation that tourists from certain countries cannot come to South Africa, even if they test negative for the coronavirus, is a case in point. This government is simply drunk on power and showing off that they can decide, whilst many hopeless young people are waiting for a job and suffering. The Minister of Tourism should be deeply concerned with this irrational regulation, especially since she should be the champion of the industry to save the very jobs which she is responsible for. How does she truthfully and with dignity say she supports transformation in the sector when her very industry is shedding jobs because of something that is clearly an illogical decision by government? Honorable Speaker, instead of the minister focusing on trying to amend the tourism amendment
Honorable
bill,
Member, Honorable Chair, not Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, that's fine. Instead of the minister focusing on trying to amend the tourism amendment bill after the strong pushback by the DA, a bill that tries to kill many new Airbnb jobs, the minister should be focusing on trying to create new regulations and should be trying to do away with any new regulations and all the costs of new businesses so that other businesses can be able to also compete and to be able to create new jobs themselves and equally compete with Airbnb. That is what we support. That is the innovation which brings in new jobs, new businesses, and gives people power and not government. South Africa is going through a tragic economic and jobs crisis created by the ANC. And whilst the ANC will talk at length about supporting businesses in small towns, dorpies, and rural areas, the truth is they do not support people in those areas to be empowered themselves. They support governments to receive more power. And in the end, that is the difference between the ANC and us. We support people, the ANC does not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize UDM, Honorable Stolle from the IFP.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Transformation in tourism sectors is much needed, but yet it has been slow. This sector is very important for the country's development and maintenance of deep rural villages and municipalities. These areas are dependent on foreign and local municipalities to survive yet. When we take a step back and look at these areas for what they are, we see riches of beauty, land, and culture. The contrast between the potential of these areas in terms of these intrinsic values versus the poverty of local municipalities highlights one major problem. This is that the sector is obviously lacking transformation to address this disparity. It is all well and good for us to stand here today and consider a transformation charter, but if we as a collective do not ensure the implementation of this charter and consistently monitor and evaluate its effectiveness, we will not yield the desired success of its intended purpose. To this end, the IFP calls on the Minister to set clear timelines and brief the community on a biannual basis of the department performance in fulfilling this mandate. Minister, I place forward the challenge at your feet to table before the committee plan that indicate set deliverables and indicators and how you will implement this charter before the next annual budget period. The IFP believes it is simply a request. It's complete on time. We will see growth in business opportunities to unlock rural-based jobs. Furthermore, we will transform the business sectors in this area to local ownership, reduce poverty and give dignity to all South Africans. In order for this charter to be fully effective and constructive, a commitment is needed by the ruling party and the minister to root out corruption and partisan employment. This is a sector that has been currently suffer from devastating effort to COVID-19. It cannot afford for corruptions to manifest as livelihoods are on threshold of extremely and prolonged poverty. Uma sifuna ukuthi le charter iphumelele noma ihambe ngendlela eyiyo kuzofanele silo nobugebengu loba bokudliwa kwemali okwenziwa amalunga nabaholi.
Phothula ke, Honorable Member.
Angibonge kakhulu, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize member from UDM. UDM. Honorable member from ATM. ATM. Now I recognize Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Sheikh Imam. We are going to proceed to Honorable from the AIC. 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 Honorable member from COPE. 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 Honorable member from the PAC. 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 I am now recognizing the member from the ANC, Honorable Gomba.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Thank you very much, House Chair. The structural economy patterns in the tourism sector can be changed by ensuring meaningful participation of the previously marginalized communities. And I hope Honorable Gumbi is listening. This means that there should be targeted efforts to encourage participation of Black people in the tourism industry. Given the historical context of structural exclusion from the sector, it is imperative that government intervenes to harness, increasing, and supporting the full potential of the emerging tourism enterprises to achieve the objective of inclusive growth and shared economy development. This will directly contribute to reducing poverty, unemployment, and equality in the sector, foster nation building, and deepen democracy, as all citizens will be given equal and conducive environment to participate and grow in the sector. Inclusive growth requires broad-based transformation, breakdown structural impediments to new economic activities, deconcentrate industries by few participants, and accelerate the inclusion of millions of Black South Africans into jobs and businesses. This could be achieved through developing, marketing, and growing tourism in villages, townships, and small dorpies. And I thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable members, that concludes the debate and the business of the virtual mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary session will now rise. Thank you.
Chair.
Long live the chair.
Honorable Chair.
Chairperson.
Sihlalo.
Yabulela nangomso.
Honorable Chair.
Chair.
Honorable Kwesi, get yourself out of the system. We're done.
No, Chair, I wanted to request something.
Request offline.
Ndabezit, I wanted to request on your behalf. the way they write your title, Nkosi, should be Inkosi Zweli Velile Mandela, not Nkosi.
You are out of order now. What is this now?
It's written badly. Should be Inkosi Ndabezit. Yakahlela.
Yebo Mashimani. Isn't it now Yusuf? And it is, you have changed, it's now Yusuf.
Mhlangwini is out of order, really. You're out of order, EFF comrade. Inkosi is really Velile Mandela. Not Nkosi. I don't know, what can I say, really. This person who wrote this thing must be, brought, to the council there.